What is going on, everybody? You are watching FM in the AM, Real Life with Duke White on Current FM, and of course, our television show. We are so excited to have you, everybody. We got with us Maher with us, and I'm so excited about this because I actually got to meet you at, I believe, I don't even want to say it was a live festival or Creation Festival. I doubt you remember because there was thousands of people there. Uh, but yeah, but it was crazy. But you are going to be on tour with it's We the Kingdom, right?
Yes, I'm super excited to be going on the road with these guys. I've known them for a long time. Uh, you know, I've known Ed, who's in the band, and Scott, but I've known Ed the longest. Ed produced a song on my first full label album, Empty and Beautiful, in 2008, and I remember meeting his kids when they were kids, and now they're adults. So it's really exciting to be able to to reconnect with them and get back out on the road and make some music.
Yeah. And so speaking of that, uh, we were all of us that the people in our age group, we were all part of that first venture out where Christian music was taking, exploring different sounds and going further than just our typical church sound. Um, how do you think we've come so far?
Oh, I mean, I think there's been some pretty incredible music that's been made over the past uh what I would probably call there's probably been three iterations, you know what I mean? I mean, there's the original Christian music that sort of developed out of the Jesus movement, and then there was the kind of the first big wave was like you take like the Amy Grants and the Michael W. Smiths and then you've got like, alongside you've got like when I came to know Jesus, I was in my early 20s and had moved to United States, and someone handed me a Jars of Clay CD and a DC Talk CD, and
Oh,
it and but really what did it for me was, I think I heard a band from England called Delirious, and
yep.
they were a worship band, and so I think it's been an incredible moment in history to be part of, and an incredible moment of creativity to be part of, and um, yeah, just kind of honored to be here. I think there's definitely, yeah, there's always there's that's the great thing about music, is that it sort of it stems out of the overflow of a heart that's been impacted by life, and I think particularly when that life is a life of faith, it carries with it a real message of hope, hopefully.
Yeah, and that's kind of what you've done throughout the years. How does it feel? I mean, listen, man, I know that the band life is difficult. I know that tour life is difficult. I know that you guys have families and everything like that, and so you want to get back. But what does it feel like, even just knowing that people want to come up and talk to you and tell you what your music has done for them?
Oh, I mean, what I would say is a couple of years ago, I kind of was starting to get, just a little bit burned out from being away from my own family. My wife and I have been married 13 years, and we have three kids. And, I think it was one of those things around that time where I remember, I think, saying to God, like, hey, it would be great to know that this music is actually making a difference in people's life. And I don't think that's necessarily why you do it, because uh, that can be a real two-edged sword. And in some ways too, like, God doesn't call us to be successful; He calls us to be faithful. And so, uh, but all that to say, I did start. All of a sudden, it was funny. I just started hearing from people who, shared their own stories and testimonies of how a song impacted their life, and it really, really really made a big difference. I think just for me in terms of an encouragement to keep going.
Yeah. So tell me about this. When you're writing music, where are you in your heart, in your space? Is it born out of uh, just you playing the instrument, or like you playing your guitar or something, or like where do you get your creative flow from?
I think it's that's a great question. I think there are kind of in some ways buckets of life. There's faith, there's relationships, and just kind of taking care of yourself. And so I think you know I would faith by faith I would say like more the devotional aspect of my faith of like am I reading my Bible? Am I considering my life in the context of the story of God? And and then am I in right relationship with God? Am I and for me, it's like what I've heard at this point in my life is like the real way that you measure your relationship with God is your relationship with other people.
Ah,
Because that's what Jesus kind of came to do is to reconcile all things to himself. So for me, it's like that. I look at my relationship with my family, my wife and my children, and uh, and if I'm showing up for them, uh, for me now that's synonymous in a way with showing up um, to find Jesus in my midst.
yeah,
And usually when I'm doing those two things, and then just the bare minimum of like just make sure you get sleep. Ma- make sure you eat well. Like the creativity is something that happens out of the overflow of a life well lived. That's what I would say.
yeah. So I think that the uh, chasing after success actually produces the exact opposite of what you just said. I think that chasing after success, not saying that we aim low, but uh, like you said, there's a difference. There's something deceptive about chasing after success that leaves people worn out, uh, unappreciated, stressed out, and then still feeling unfulfilled. Uh, where
Yeah, I
yeah,
mean, totally.
and I think I wanted to tell you this because it's important to me to let you know that like one of the things that I always respected you for. I've been doing radio for 20 years, and one of the things I've always respected was I can tell you pay attention to like life itself. You know what I mean? You have a very organic, like the way you carry yourself. And like I can tell you're very thoughtful about things. And this is just what I get from your music because your insight and the things that you say and the things you pay attention to and express lets me know you really do spend time thinking about not just focusing, but also thinking about like life and how things work. And I appreciate that because it comes over in your music.
Oh well, that's very kind of you. And I think some of it's just like life experience and trial and error. Of like you chase success, that's what you find, and it won't satisfy you because it's not a person. It's not a it's not it's a finite success is a finite thing. Like my kids go to a Christian school, and it's a great school. But I remember when they got home in older grades, and when kids get older, they start comparing, sizing up their life in comparison with other people's. It's like, well, so and so lives in this neighborhood, so and so drives this car, so and so, and they're like, and they came home, they're like, Dad, are you famous? And I'm like, guys, I said, I said two things. I said, number one, fame is relative. I was like, you can be famous amongst 10 people and a nobody in a foreign country. I said, so fame is a relative term when it comes to humanity.
Yeah.
And I said, but really the only, and not, this could sound right or, like an overly religious comment, but it's like, I mean, God, for all the people who wrestle with his existence or say, I don't believe in him, I'm like, well, you know about him because you're making a decision to not believe in him. So,
Yeah, yeah,
so,
yeah.
and maybe the problem is just that you know about him and you don't know him. So I think, yeah, I mean, it's, it's trial and error, I mean, like, I think the thing that when I got into this, one artist who really inspired my own journey was a guy named Rich Mullins.
Yep.
And, he was around in the 90s and the late 80s. He'd written songs for other artists. And I just, his sort of radical devotion to really trying to make visible Christ to those around him just was it was very inspiring. But he used to say, Christian artists are not pastors. Now, some Christian artists are literally pastors, as in they went to seminary and they're on staff at churches. But I think there is something to be said for the artist as more of a prophet, and I don't mean even in a religious sense. In the much of the sense is somebody who's willing to go out to the edge and peer over and write a song about what they see, and oftentimes they're helping articulate the deeper things of life that people just struggle to find a way to understand.
I agree 100%. I've been telling everybody, like, I really believe that our faith-based artists are our modern day Levites. They are the musical priests that, I mean, back in the day, they would put the priests and the worshipers in the front of the army. You
Yeah,
know what I And when you think about that, it's like, whoa, man! Like, not like how far have we fallen, but it's like, look how much more territory we've taken. Now, faith-based music, that was warred against in the church a long time ago, is now being played all over the world. You know what I
yeah.
mean? And what does that feel like when you find out that your music is being sang in different countries?
I mean, it's humbling. It's humbling. I think when I first heard about it, it was overwhelming in the sense of like, I don't know these people. I don't know what the their struggles are that are unique to where they live and how the church is experienced there. But you know, I think you kind of realize that God is the difference maker in the equation, and that's some of it's the universal appeal and power of art that it's a way to communicate deeper truths about the human experience in a way that really, really do resonate with people, regardless of even where you're from, which is great. I think at the same time now, what inspires me is meeting young writers and artists from different countries
Yeah,
who are now starting to write songs coming out of their cultural experience and their language. And I think that that's really, really, honestly, that's more exciting than the idea of them singing a song I wrote in their language
oh
is
wow.
is being able to inspire them to be the psalmists of of their own country. And that's like, because that's part, it says in scripture that God's gift to man is the nations. And it's not when all the nations act like one nation. It's when we become reconciled to one another, and there's these different cultures and languages and expressions, but we're all worshiping Jesus, and
Yeah.
what does that feel like, or what does it sound like in Brazil, or what does that feel like and what does that sound like in Mexico, or what does that feel like or sound like, in France, and yeah, getting to hear those, not just the sounds of, but their hearts come out in their music, to me is really, really, really beautiful.
Yeah. Now, it's when we talk about influence and where we've come. I got to ask you this. When we like say Christian films, I'm seeing a lot more Christian-based movies come out. Um, how do you really feel about the place that believers should take on faith-based media? Is it something that people of God should say, absolutely, we are responsible for faith-based movies, music, we need to support that, or do we just kind of let things be what they are?
I mean, I think if you watch a movie and you like it, you naturally want to tell your friends about it. And so that, what I would say we have an obligation to isn't necessarily when it comes to art. I think the metric should always be like, do it's pretty subjective. Like music, I'm really finding out watching my kids like listen to music. Like, one, some of them love certain songs and some of them hate the same songs. And I I think we should always encourage people within the body of Christ to keep expressing themselves and express their faith. Uh, I because people will say to me, I love that your music, I love your music because of your background. Like I'm a Catholic. So it's like I'll meet Catholics and they're like, I just love hearing a Catholic on Christian radio. It's really, really great. And I think it's an honor, obviously, to make stuff that supports people in their faith, and you definitely want to do that. But there's also an element of art where it's just like, hey, I want you to listen to it because you love it, because you like it, and maybe part of your value judgment is that it builds you up, and that's awesome. I think that's really, really important, really important to do. I think, to me, I think it's like, but there should be the ability that, like, that when it comes to art and music and stuff has to be able to uh, stand on the basis of is it good or not, and once again, that's really subjective. So a large group of people are going to say we want to support this album or we want to support this film because of the message that it shares. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I don't necessarily think that you should make other people do the same thing if they want to base a film because they're like, well, I want to base whether or not I like a film based on the script or the performance of the actors or, whatever. Because I think that's, it's like if you go to an art gallery and you look at a painting by Debussy and you look at a painting by Van Gogh and you're like, well, you shouldn't support Van Gogh's paintings because he cut off his ear.
That's
It's
great.
like, uh, I mean, I think we're here to look at a painting,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
so it can get really complicated for sure,
So,
and
let me ask you this, because I'm glad you brought that up about just being subjective in itself. Um, how do you feel? And I was talking to um, Martin Cash from We the Kingdom yesterday, and I was asking him about social media and just being an artist. It's weird because we want people to see our work, we want people to appreciate what we've done. How do you handle when people don't get it, especially for these young artists coming up? And I really thought, like, wow, he answered it in such a way that was so impactful. But how do you handle such like a sea of criticism that absolutely can happen nowadays with the social media, with the internet?
yeah, I mean, I think you have to you have to make pretty you have to draw pretty clear lines in your life and pretty clear boundaries. I think that any public figure, uh, and here's the thing, like because of social media, everyone's a public figure. So that, I think the funny thing is that everyone needs to understand, listen, guys, like, uh,
That's
every,
good.
like we've created a world where we've allowed tech companies to create these platforms which show us what we want to see. That because algorithms are not human; it's just data, but it's based on your preferences. And so, if you find yourself looking at really really negative stuff, it's like it's because
That's
upon
it.
maybe deeper reflection, you might actually start to understand, oh wow, this thing is drawing me towards negative things, and I need to figure out a way to curb the activity of this in my life because it's not bringing out the best in me. It's not.
That's good.
It's a tool, and so you can't, like, some people go to social media because they're lonely and they're looking for community. Well, it's not. That's not real community. It's a mirage of community. It's an illusion of community, and it will temporarily satisfy you, like other things will. And I'm not saying it's not valuable or it doesn't have importance. That's not it at all. It can be a real lifeline for some people, and I understand it. But I think the goal should always be that it's a lifeline that connects you to help you form real kind of lasting bonds. Because I think it's weird because it's like, what happens if somebody lives in one part of the country and they connect really well with a group of people who live in a different city? And you're like, well, if I don't go on social media, I don't have any connection here. And I would say, well, maybe you should just move. Uh, be, because I think ultimately at the end of the day, where I tend to land on this stuff is that I'm a human being. I am I am a body and a soul and a mind and a spirit. And I think because the word of God chose to become a human being, I think the human experience matters to God.
Yeah.
And I love the ways in which social media can enhance the human experience, but I absolutely deplore the ways that it removes the human experience. And we're entering this weird phase where pretty soon our brains aren't going to be able to distinguish between what's real and what's virtual. And
I'm
I
so glad
think
you said that.
Christians have a responsibility to remind people of just the beauty of what it means to be human.
Yeah, and I think that what when I think that where we failed miserably at was we wanted to give God all this glory and then make it seem like we were worthless and we are this when really God wants us to give him glory, of course, but he also wanted us to see the beauty in his creation, the beauty,
Yes.
and so we've created an unhealthy way of defining the difference between us and God. Like we're hopeless and helpless without God, and God's like, yeah, but you're saying it the wrong way. You know what I mean? It's like I'm bringing you into this relationship where you have all these wonderful resources that I'm giving you because I love you. Uh,
Yeah.
and, and honestly, I can tell that now. That listen to me, tell me if I'm wrong, but I can tell that you actually do spend a lot of time in the Word of God. Is what are you trying to communicate when you are spending time in the Word of God, like through your music? You know, is it based off like I'm trying to evangelize, or is it based off like, man, I got this message from God and I want to share it because this is what I got from a Bible study or my time with God, or is it more like what can I do to reach souls?
I think it's actually now it's even more detached from an outcome, and it's more so I I want to tell the truth. And if it's like I want to tell the truth about me, or I want to tell the truth about a situation in life and how I feel about it, or yeah, I want to. I got a revelation for something, and I want to tell the truth about it. Like a classic example. Last night was the CMA Awards, and there's an artist named Jelly Roll, who's like, some people would find his life scandalous, but
He's
there's an
raw.
but there he is so raw, and there's an element of his story that's just it's unequivocally beautiful, and it's truthful. He's really, really truthful. And he said this line last night where I was like, the dude just straight up started preaching, because he's like, there's a reason your windshield is bigger than your rearview mirror.
Oh man.
And it's because what's in front of you is so much more important than what's behind you. And I was like, I was at my bunk in my bus, and I literally just almost like started running up and down the hallway of the bus.
Wow, dude. Yeah, man. That's good stuff.
Well, it's like I will lift my eyes to the mountains. Where does my help come from? My help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. It's like to lift your eyes is usually to lift your eyes forward. So I just think, like, what I would say, like, in my songwriting now, it's more so of just trying to get to a pure place of like, there are these habits in life that I know that are good. They're good for me, and they're good because God intended them to exist. And that's as far as I need to take it. More and more, you know, I think we're going to enter an age where more and more science is going to prove is basically we're going to find data that proves religion in a way. It proves the
Yeah.
existence of spirit of a very real like spirituality, the idea that we're interconnected, the idea that our thoughts and our feelings and our decisions actually they have real world consequences. Like that stuff's all going to start revealing itself, and the people that are going to need help aren't the spiritual people. It's actually the people who've become more religious by embracing a very specific subset of language called like that's very very set in its ways.
Yeah.
And so for me as an artist, as a songwriter, it's like I know that when I do these practices of faith, uh, I'm in right relationship with God. I'm in right relationship with my family. I literally feel better. I literally think better. I literally live better. And
Yeah.
and then and then out of that will usually come like a bolt of lightning idea for a song or a chord progression or a melody fragment. And then I'm just chasing it down, and it's kind of like a sculptor staring at a big block of stone.
Yeah.
What's
Yeah.
inside? What's inside? There's
So
something
so
in there.
so check this out, right? So check this out. I think about God's creativity and how He's created us, and that we are created in His image. Um, when I think about certain topics, it's almost like Christians are allowed to talk about these things, but you can't talk about these things. I wanted to know how do you feel about Christian artists communicating things like their love for their wife, communicating things like their love for their children, or uh, should a Christian be able to make a song where they talk about how they love to dance or they love, like, is there a line on Christian content?
There shouldn't be. I mean, it. There shouldn't be in a sense that like, is there a line on where I expect Jesus to show up in my life?
Ooh, ooh,
I mean, so it's like you people tune in the radio station, and we tell people like, "Hey, Jesus wants to be part of your whole life." It's like, well, then, yeah, like to your point, where are the songs? Where are the songs about the whole of my life? And I think probably the reason was, I mean, there's a lot of reasons, right? But I think what I would say is that um, maybe it's because maybe it's because for a long time we sold certainty instead of faith.
yeah, yeah. So I know that with the Jesus movement, hippies were already demonized, and this was a predominantly Christian nation, especially when it came to media at the time. And so that demonization still like letting those guys in, letting the rhythm and blue Christian artists, letting them in on media. It was almost like, no, you go over here and play. You guys create a different realm, and we're going to stay over here and do our kind of like our church thing, right? Well, they ended up growing bigger in a sense, especially with the birth of MTV and all that stuff. And I think that we historically we've learned a lesson that not tolerance but acceptance, us accepting people where they are and guiding people, building those relationships creatively, uh, engages a bigger opportunity to reach souls. When you brought up Jelly Roll, I would never have thought in a million years that I'd be talking to Matt Maher about Jelly Roll, you know.
But
But
but see, but like I would just go like, well, that the Bible's. I mean, it's like someone would say, in a million years, I never thought I would talk about the Messiah having dinner with the tax collector.
that's good. That's good. Because here's the thing, Jelly Roll. I love this guy so much because of his authenticity and his straight warning to the body of Christ. Like, if we don't get serious about connecting with people, that we're going to lose our opportunity that we have, because people are searching, man.
Oh,
And
more than ever before, people are really, really hungry, and they're just hungry for someone. And this is the thing, right? Is that like you look at like who connects in society? The people who tell it like it is, and not like who tell it as it should be. And it's like if you drew like a vertical line and a horizontal line, right? Like a big graph, right? And you put on the left side like mental health challenges, and on the right side mental health. And then the bottom side you put languishing, and the top side you put flourishing. Most of our songs are in this top white quadrant in church. People show up in church on Sunday, and what they mostly hear are songs of a bunch of people who say, I'm a picture of health and I'm completely flourishing in my life. And that's not where most people are right now.
no,
We've had 3 years of inflation. People can barely afford, to buy, to basically afford to live, to rent has gone up in every major city in America. It's like, so just, and it's like, and then, so how do you take someone who's basically going, man, I'm working two jobs. I don't see my spouse because they're working two jobs. We've got kids. We want them to know God. We show up at church on Sunday, and we don't know, someone gets up there and talks about Jesus saying, don't worry about money. It's like, how the hell am I supposed to not worry about money?
right.
Because,
Especially with no, go
well,
ahead.
just because the guy who's talking doesn't have to worry about money because he's got a salary. He's got a parsonage, and he probably has some sort of tax benefit for his house. It's like, how do I? And that's not bad. Those aren't like, that's the thing. It's like, it doesn't make him a bad person. It's like, that's the job. You're a pastor. You're trying to shepherd a church, and you're trying to help lead people. They're in an impossible position too, because people are showing up every Sunday, and they're the ones who are getting the real conversation. So it's like, what I would say to someone, like a Jelly Roll is like, I think the real conversations are happening. They're not happening publicly. They're definitely happening privately. When the divorce rate in churches is the same as outside the church, conversations are happening. I
Yeah,
think it's just that what it is that we're still stuck. Remember that movie Pleasantville?
come on, man. Yes,
We're still
yes,
stuck and it's like, what's outside Pleasantville? We're still stuck in Pleasantville. We're still stuck in a church that either feels like a museum or a sitcom, and not a hospital.
yeah. So when I think about that, it's a lot of times it comes from not recognizing our divine authority, our divine connection, and that we have like the kingdom of God, where we've been trying to I think we forget history, like how they took the Bible out of school, how that affects everyone. It affects them and it affects us. And then how we separate ourselves, when we participated in things like racial divide, and we don't quite, and when you find us being influenced by more of the world with this weird interpretation of spirituality, and then and then we try to move on, and we don't know which part is real and which part wasn't. And I don't believe we've given ourselves a chance to have that pure experience with God where He's truly separating us to Himself, telling us what life is about. Like He walked with the disciples for 3 years and they were completely separated from everything they thought they knew. And I think it's only when like God is able to do that with really willing vessels. And I think you guys are one of those willing vessels because you're out there on the road. You're taking that chance. You're literally going out there, hoping ticket sales. You're hoping that. I mean, and that's what I'm saying is that God's always going to respond to people who really take him at his word versus read the scriptures and try to still fit in culture. You're not going to get the same results. And I think that's where a lot of the confusion's coming in. When we do this walk with God, He's calling us out, and we don't know how far He's calling us to. You know, and I know that when I look at His response to Peter, and I'd love to hear your take on this. When I look at His response to Peter, when Peter starts walking on water, I notice He says, "Why did you fear?" versus "Good job for coming out this far."
Yeah, no, he doesn't even get that.
He
He doesn't.
doesn't.
He doesn't get a pat on the shoulder. You know, he doesn't get a trophy.
So,
Uh,
what do you think about
so
that?
I mean, I think it. He was in the that to me. It's like it's the human side of Jesus, of like the infinite. You know, he's infinitely patient, but he's like he's kind of calling Peter on the thing, which is like, why'd you take your eyes off me?
Yeah,
Because I think that's because maybe he's trying to help Peter see the lesson
yeah,
in that the issue was like, the issue here is like, look, if this is about uh utter dependence, you are not humanly capable of walking on water. And it's like most of the stuff that we do in life, that if we make something or have a moment in life where like we participate in something that's truly transcendent, if it's a movie, if it's a song, if it's a relationship, if it's an experience, usually the reason that we're participating in it is because we got out of the way.
ah,
And I think the problem was Peter couldn't get out of the way of himself.
yeah. So I gotta ask this because I know there's a lot of artists that they're gonna see this and they're gonna hear this. I gotta ask this. So it's like when you come out. First of all, you have no idea that you're going to be a successful writer, be a successful musician, and it's like pushing like the temptation. I'm mainly speaking because of the arts. The arts. People who say that God is calling them into the arts, it seems like they're surrounded by people that say you can't do this, you can't make this. What about this? What about that? What about? It's always like giving them a reason to throw their dreams away. I don't know why we do that to our artists at all, especially our faith-based artists, because we need more. But it seems like there's that part. But then it's like when you do make it, how do you maintain that walking on the water? When it's like, oh, this trend is out now. Who's gonna be listening to my music? Oh, this social media platform. I got to start all over again. How do you manage all of that, and not just go insane and be like, man, I'm going fishing, man. I'm going to work at Walmart. That's dude.
That's great. That's a great question.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I mean, no, I mean, I don't, I think I'm just trying to figure it out like everyone else. I think it's like the thing in life though, right? Like, I think faith is basically God, I can't, but you can. And Saint Augustine said, "Pray as if everything depends on God, and act as if everything depends on you." So you can't get paralyzed by fear. You typically most of our best decisions in life don't happen, when we're, they say tired, hungry, lonely. I would add scared to the next of it, in the sense that, like, fear sometimes is a really powerful motivator, in the sense that it will trigger your fight or flight, and you will
Yeah.
need to get yourself, and that's not bad, but you can't live there. I mean, you physically, it's like you can't live in a state of fight or flight. Like, your body won't work properly. You won't sleep because your body's full of steroids. You don't digest food because your digestion shuts off when you're trying to run from a tiger. It's just that your brain doesn't know the difference from between a tiger and uh, emotional, spiritual, physical trauma in life. And so you can't keep running away from something. You got to be running towards something. And so
Yeah.
it's like, even running from fear uh, is one thing, but running headlong to the arms of Christ is just a much more powerful motivator. So all that being said, I think everything's going to change, and that includes artists. And so, for me, I grew up I grew up. We had an 8-track machine in my house, and a record player.
Yeah. I know that.
You know what I mean? Like, I was in high school when we got a CD player. So it the way that music is going to be uh, listened to, digested, that is changing, and that is going to continue to change. What will not change is make things that you are proud of, that feel vulnerable, that feel like who you are, and it will connect with people. If you chase making something that you think people would like, or you think like it, you can't live that way. It's exhausting. It's not. It's not. I mean, that I love the We the Kingdom guys so much, and I love touring with them, because when I listen to their music, I just listen to people making the stuff that they want to hear, and that they love to play. But
Yeah.
that's what connects, and you can't control. I mean, just a great example, and I know this conversation's gone long, so good luck editing it. But it's like, I made a song on my new album. It's called "Burning Heart of God." I love that song so much, and I talked about it for a minute and a half, doing like a bunch of like promo content. That minute and a half blurb of me talking about the song has just been viewed over 500,000 times.
Yes.
And but I don't think any of those people have listened to the song yet. And it's like, I have two options. I either mourn that, or I celebrate the fact that I made something. I got to be me. I got to be honest, and it's connecting and resonating with people.
Wow, man. Well, one, I don't have to edit this. This is actually live.
Okay. Okay, great.
This is actually live. So but back to your point, I think people are going to really enjoy listening to this, actually, because it's on our podcast, it's on our YouTube channel, our radio station.
Perfect.
So this is going out pretty far. But I think that what's so phenomenal about what you said is we do have to deal with a generation where they're, I want to say, a get the gist kind of generation. I see where you're going with this, and it's like, no, you don't. Like, there's deeper. And do you think that social media and the more we give into how people listen to things, do you think that's going to affect our ability to be understood? Or, like, how do you put your life experience or something that you love and are passionate about, how do you put that in a 15-second bite or a 1-minute clip, or, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't think you can. I really don't think you. I don't think you can at all, and I don't think you're meant to. It's like what I would say is just like if you at the end of like well, even as I'm talking about making and saying stuff, it doesn't negate the importance of getting in front of people or getting with people and playing music, and particularly for me as a Christian, believing that God 100% shows up
Yeah.
and people have life-changing transformational experiences, and I want to that's always going to be my most important thing as a musician, as a songwriter, is the real life human element. I think all this other stuff, these are tools. I think that the way that they've been structured has been incredibly unfair towards the people creating stuff. And I'm actually, if I'm passionate about anything first, I'm passionate about that changing. I think if you're a stay-at-home mom and you're making 15-second TikTok videos about making a meatloaf in an air fryer and it's generating massive amounts of views and advertising money, that stuff should be flattened. The people are the content. And so like the first revolution that needs to happen is that like the vast majority of the money that these tech companies are making, it should be going to the people who are making stuff. They
Yeah.
shouldn't be making anything because so much of it's automated now anyways. Like why do they even need offices? Like they just need a server. You could put that in the
Yeah.
middle of put that in Kansas, or like just like put it in the middle of the country somewhere. It so and I think if we actually did that, it would disincentivize these companies, and
Oh,
and
yeah.
and and people would just naturally start to go, okay, well, I could stay at home and make a bunch of things from my house, or I could hit the road and see the country and meet new people and go to new places and try new food, and that sounds way more interesting. And it's like if you're a young person, the idea of just playing for just enough money to get you gas to get to the next city, for some people they're like, that sounds terrible. And I'm like, yeah, man, but what you learn along the way,
Oh,
no
dude.
you no
Yeah.
no YouTube video is going to show you.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's exactly what. Matter of fact, I wanted to test, but this happened just a few months ago. It's like, man, I used to, I got comfortable. Being wild and crazy is what got me on the radio in the first place, right? So I was that guy, you know what I mean? Like you can spot me at any concert because I'd be the loudest one, and I'd be like, well, yeah, that'd be the loudest one, the craziest one. So I get in radio. I've always done Christian radio, like I said, 20 years. And here's what's so interesting: when the shift came, right, and the internet and people started finding this, I immediately naturally wanted to go against it, you know, and I wanted to go against it, and I was like, "Oh man, this is terrible." This. How are we gonna listen to other stuff? How are we gonna do this? You know what I mean? How are we gonna make you know a living out of this? And then I realized, embrace it, right? Embrace it. Communicate with more people. And it caused me to go to a different level. But just a few months ago, what was so amazing was that I decided to disconnect and just drive to Florida, right? And I got to be honest with you, with not knowing where I was going, not knowing what I was doing, that experience taught me more in 20 years than I have ever learned in a long time. Look, man, I hope I didn't get you in trouble having such a long interview.
No, I loved it. It was great.
Yeah, man, but I see people are calling me, telling me that we got to go. So I'm like, oh
I
no.
think so. I think some other folks are waiting,
Yeah,
but man, I really enjoyed it.
oh man, well listen, man. When we get offline, I'm gonna give you my information, and we'll stay in connection, contact with each other anytime you want to share something on your heart, man. So everybody, we'll be right back. I love you guys.